late. I don't do late. I choose to bestow my presence upon the people. That is all. Do not go telling me I'm late. I don't do late. They do early. I turn up precisely when I wish to. Now, go and continue looking for those mortals who filled the Milwaukee family players' blood. And quit making comments on things that have nothing to do with you. Hello? Hello, how are you? How are you? You're back again. And we're back with more Henry VI. Yes. The director recovered. I'm sure you're all really worried about that. The director did recover, and the blood's worked its way through the Milwaukee family players system. We're still looking for who did that to them. Honestly, when they find out who did it, my husband is going to put on pants and shoes and go up topside, which is, you do not want that. My husband does not like to have to put on pants and shoes. No. So if you make him put on pants and shoes, he's going to be cranky as. You think I'm bad? You wait till you see what happens when my husband has to put on pants and shoes. Anyway, we have another Henry. We're doing 3 of them all together. Whew. Yeah, they're big. They're big. But we're doing Henry. The Milwaukee family players don't like this, but frankly, they've been misbehaving, so they do whatever I tell them to do. So, in the meantime, we have the book that is being promoted here, I think, somewhere. You know, it's available soon. It's released next month. It's for teachers. It's on Shakespeare. All right, we're done? Good. So, this week we are looking at Henry VI Part 2. This one is a better play than the last one because Shakespeare wrote all of this one. Remember when I said about Shakespeare liking family and politics? Well, this one has bucket loads, both family and politics. And we start at the wedding sort of feast, or as the marriage of Henry and Margaret is being celebrated. And Gloucester, who's going to be very important, he's one of Henry's uncles. He's one of Hal's brothers. You know, one of his younger brothers who wasn't any fun. Yeah, one of them. Because John got killed in Henry V. This one is Humphrey, one of the younger ones. He is Lord Protector. And he hears what Suffolk gave away to marry Henry to Margaret. Now, there's a lot of stuff in this play that honestly was in the prequel, which is why the prequel was unnecessary, because we hear all of these arguments over again. And since I've already gone through all these arguments, I'm not necessarily going to go through them in depth here. There is a lot of stuff here. It's a big play. So Humphrey's not happy, and nor are a lot of the other lords, of the things that were given away in order to have Margaret marry Henry. And so a lot of people are also not liking the Duke of Gloucester. They're rather resenting his power. That includes the Cardinal and most of the lords. York, in particular, is obviously on his little I should be king, mindset. And he particularly wants to get rid of Humphrey. But so do a lot of the others. A lot of the others want to get rid of him too. They think that he is too much the power behind the throne, especially now that Henry is grown up. But so all of them in their respective factions, whether it is Suffolk and Somerset and Margaret and the Cardinal, and I think Buckingham is also in there, whether it is Warwick and York who are on that side, they all see Humphrey as a mutual target, as something, if they want to have power over the king, they need to get rid of the big guard dog, which is the Duke of Gloucester, Duke Humphrey. So, Suffolk and Margaret are having an affair. Ooh, because Margaret is not happy, and Margaret is not happy in the court. Margaret is the character that goes across the whole of the 4 plays. So it can be called really the Margaret saga, because she is the virago for this one. And I'll explain a virago to you before we go any further. A virago, I think, as we said, is the shrew's younger or older sister. They were really, really popular at this particular period for much the same reason that, like, you know, superhero movies are really popular at the moment. You have no idea how many superhero movies I have down here. There are a lot of really bad ones. Lots. I'm not quite certain what superheroes are. I think they're a bit like demigods. We have a lot of those here too. You know, the ones that like to call themselves siblings of mine. No. I have brother, cousin, sister, cousin, gods, demigods. No, they die. They die. Big signal that they're not the same. And also that the god bit, that was on loan from whichever god was their parent. It goes back to them. They stay here. We have a lot of grumpy demigods down here. Lots. Including Heracles. You think Auntie Hera was going to let him upstairs? No. But anyway, I think that's what superheroes are. They look the same. All body, no brains. So, anyway. She's a virago, and this appeared to have been a really popular trope at the time. It's not really any sort of anything other than that. Why are superhero movies popular? Why were killer animal movies popular? It was a trope. It was popular. So Margaret is one of those. And this becomes apparent as you go through the play. So she's complaining to Suffolk, her lover, that Henry is a really cold fish, that the Duchess of Gloucester has been lording it over her, that visitors to the court think that she is an attendant of the Queen, not the Queen herself, because they mistake the Duchess of Gloucester for the Queen. And there is a lot of reason why they're feeling quite, you know what, we really need to get rid of Duke Humphrey because this is no good. And my husband is just so, he's very religious. And that doesn't make for a good husband, if you know what I mean. It's all very laudable to be very religious and very pious, but he'd be a better monk than a husband. So she is having problems in that respect. Next we get the Duke Humphrey. We see him. He is a good man. He is trying really hard to do what is best for his country, but he's been playing at being king for a long time, and his wife is rather of the opinion that, you could be king. You could be king. This play is interesting because it's got a lot of kernels of things that will become really big in other plays. So York is kind of a proto Cassius and Iago type of character. He's not really quite like Richard III, but he does talk to the audience a degree, so there is an element of that, but he's more, I'm going to manipulate things behind the scenes like Cassius or Iago, but not really as skillfully written. You could really tell this is a younger man trying out tricks. And you see this again with the Duchess of Gloucester, who is sort of like a proto-Lady Macbeth. She's would like to be the power behind the throne, except that her husband is Sir Humphrey, or is not Sir Humphrey, that's a whole different thing. Her husband is Duke Humphrey, and Duke Humphrey is loyal to his king. He sees what he is doing as being important for the kingdom, and so she does press, maybe you could be king, you could do better than this, and he's not having any of it. But she is starting to see a sorcerer. So she's trying to find out what's going to happen, like Macbeth with the witches, except the difference is that the sorcerer she's seeing is a charlatan, and that people who are opposed to Humphrey are behind finding and paying off so that they will know where she is when this happens, so that they have an attack point for Humphrey. And her maid is being paid by both her and them, which includes Buckingham. So she's a bit more naive. Then Lady Macbeth's pretty naive to think that that was a good idea. Anyway, she's sort of a less hands-on Lady Macbeth, prototype for Lady Macbeth. You'll find a lot of these throughout the whole thing. So she is consulting or planning to consult with a sorcerer to find out how her husband can become king. So one of the big problems of this play is there's a lot of politics that it doesn't advance things as well. Shakespeare hadn't yet learnt how to balance narrative and character development with actual historical events. So there's a lot of historical events in here that probably could be skipped. So there is a quarrel with an armourer and his apprentice where the armourer suggests that the Duke of York is the rightful king, which goes on a little bit. Gloucester is trying to push for the Duke of York to be regent in France, but others don't want that. They manage to upset the Duke, and he leaves, and then the Queen drops her fan. This is actually one of the big sort of moments, but it's sort of a turning point in terms of the Queen becoming an active virago character instead of just, something behind the scenes. So the Queen, in another attempt to sort of alienate Gloucester and elevate both herself and her husband, because she complains that her husband doesn't appear, it seems more like a man among his equals rather than a king. She strikes the Duchess of Gloucester, and the Duchess of Gloucester leaves in high dudgeon, and this prompts her to go to interact with the sorcerer. When Gloucester returns, they question these ordinary little people who were having an argument, an armourer and his apprentice, and they decide that they're going to have trial by combat. Honestly, this is sort of I think it goes nowhere. And there's a lot of little bits like that in this play. This is why it's an early play. It's for a writer who will get very good at writing the history plays, which you see in the later ones. This one, you see there is some bumps that need ironing out. So they're going to have trial by combat, which the apprentice goes and freaks out about because the armourer is like twice his size and going to kill him. What did he expect? So the Duchess of Gloucester, having been humiliated by the Queen, assembles her sorcerer, who is a complete charlatan, and we see that he's a complete charlatan, but she is completely taken in. But then Buckingham comes in, scares off the sorcerer, they run, and the Countess of Gloucester the Duchess of Gloucester is arrested for witchcraft. Okay, so next we are out hunting, and while they're out hunting, Duke Humphrey and the court meet some peasants who claim to be cured at the local shrine. A man claims to be cured of blindness at the local shrine. King Henry is like very taken in by this because he is so pious. But Duke Humphrey, proving what a watchdog Duke Humphrey is and why everyone is so frightened of him, proves that the man was never blind and is not lame by threatening him with a whipping, which forces him to run away. And so everyone is very much like, yeah, we need to get rid of this bloke. He is in our way. So again, it's another little bit that doesn't really go anywhere. It provides a degree of character development. There's a lot of stuff in this play where we could be building a lot more character, but it's being wasted in little side stories. You know, there is no equivalent of the great tavern scene, which builds a huge amount of character. It progresses the story, but a lot of that is just building character. Shakespeare also hasn't quite got the balance of comedy and seriousness yet, which you'll see in this play, which it really suffers from, because getting that balance is really what makes a Shakespeare play sound like a Shakespeare play. You know, even Titus has laughs. This one doesn't really have laughs as such. It's very hard to play any laughs in it, which is, you know, kind of unfortunate, because but it's an early play, so it's kind of like watching someone learning. They're going to make mistakes, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that in this. Also, during this scene, having succeeded in protecting the king from these charlatans, Buckingham then comes in and says, "Hey, look, your wife has just been arrested for witchcraft. Bad." York then talks to Warwick about, yes, well, I should really be king, blah, 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 blah. Honestly, he does a lot of this talking about why he should be king, and it gets rehashed over and over, so I'm not going to rehash it every single time. It gets boring, really, because it's not developing a lot of character. It's just the same thing over and over again. He talks and gets Warwick on side, but they can't do it. He's going to pretend to be loyal to the king until they can get rid of Duke Humphrey, because Duke Humphrey is the most powerful Lancastrian around, and you got to get rid of him before you can do anything else. The Duchess is accused of witchcraft and forced to do penance. So she is dragged through the town in humiliation. This humiliates Duke Humphrey and does undermine his position somewhat, but he claims to be innocent of knowing anything about this. You do feel sorry for Duke Humphrey, and the whole time in this, Henry is just very weak. It's the whole play might be called Henry VI, but Henry is himself just this almost a vacuum in the middle of all of this swirling, which allows for all of these nobles to be and everybody else to be attacking on all sides, because he doesn't take a position. He's relying on others to be good, and because he doesn't seem to see manipulation or anything like that. He's really like a child. Okay, so you have the trial by combat, which sort of feels a bit like, what was the point of that? Duke Humphrey is forced to surrender his staff of office. He meets his wife being paraded through the streets, and she says that he's soon going to fall from his position. The Queen and Suffolk and the others all persuade the king that Gloucester is aiming for the crown, and that he's in a conspiracy against the king, which leads to Gloucester being arrested and put into the Tower. Sussex, with the king now against, or sided against Gloucester, not really believing this, but sort of feeling that yes, it possibly is, and we'll have to put this to trial, doesn't really trust that the king is going to actually get rid of this pest for them, because he's gentle-hearted, and so he kills Gloucester. They prepare for the trial of Gloucester, and King Henry is, ready for them to, okay, come on, we're going to go to take this to trial. But then he hears that Gloucester is dead, and they bring out the body, and Henry is just overcome and can't believe this. It's too much. It overwhelms him, and he does. Before Gloucester was killed, there is a messenger comes that says that Ireland is rebelling, and Suffolk, it suggests he go, or suggests that Suffolk go, but King Henry sends York. York tells the audience that he's going to whip up a popular rebellion using Jack Cade before going to Ireland to suppress the rebels. Warwick accuses Suffolk of killing Gloucester. Gloucester is going to duel Warwick, but the people cry out that Suffolk killed Gloucester, and they want Suffolk's head. So the king banishes Suffolk. It gets really kind of there's a lot of little moving bits, but they don't all do anything. It sort of becomes an issue with this play. Too many moving parts and not enough really building up these characters a lot. But, that's the issue with this. So, Gloucester is now dead. The king doesn't have a sheepdog anymore. Suffolk is now sent into exile. Warwick has accused him. So we've got, it's actually very similar to Richard II, except that Richard II actually ordered his uncle killed. That's the difference. Richard II, for all his frivolous silliness, is actually a more serious and potentially dangerous character than Henry. Henry really is naive and childlike through the whole thing, which makes it really hard to properly identify with him. The cardinal is now dying, and he is very well aware that they were all responsible for the death of Gloucester and is overcome with guilt. And again, this horrifies Henry to hear the cardinal not hope for heaven as he's dying, because Henry's very, very pious. The Suffolk, on his way into exile in France, is his ship is taken by pirates and he is killed, and his head sent back to the court, where the Queen will, for a good deal of the play, carry around his severed head, which, again, Elizabethan theatre kind of like this gross stuff. Most of it disappeared after this point, but, she does carry around the severed head of Suffolk. So, in England, the people are rebelling, whipped up by Jack Cade, who is like all of and there's a whole load of Jack Cade stuff. We're just going to rush through this because it gets it's back and forth, and he really, what does he say except what every populist ever says? Down with this, grow up with that, and I'm going to take everything for myself, but you people are too stupid to understand that. I'm actually the descendant of Mortimer. He's been fed a whole load of stuff by York. That's essentially York's story, but he's whipped up the people, and they are marching on London to the point of taking the Tower, and they've killed really significant people. Cade is down with education. They have the dialogue of first let's kill all the lawyers, which is I think the most quotable line in this play. First we'll kill all the lawyers. And he's very anti-education, anti-intellectual. He's the village moron. He's the village moron. Eventually, with some difficulty, and with not nearly the finesse that you will have happen later on in Julius Caesar, the multitude are quieted by Buckingham, who basically says on the king's orders, anyone who departs and leaves will be pardoned, but if you insist on fighting us, you will be killed. So they put down the rebellion. The Queen has been carrying around the head, the severed head, it's got to stink by now, of Suffolk, and the King actually says to her, I can't imagine that you'd feel so badly about my death as you do about Suffolk. And the Queen says, oh, if you died, I would die. No, you wouldn't, Margaret. You're in Richard III. You don't die. You don't really care about him that much. Not that much. You like being Queen. I'm totally on board with that. You like being Queen, but no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't die. You wouldn't die for him. You're just saying that to be nice. Good little wifey. Anyway, so the rebellion is put down. Jack Cade is killed. York returns from Ireland with an army, and he claims the throne for himself and his sons as the descendant of Mortimer. Margaret and her backers, Lord Clifford and Somerset, are very much no, you don't. You don't get to do this, matey. The king is a little too weak, really. He's really quite weak, and not putting up much of a fight for his own kingdom. Like, seriously, dude. I think he's a bit overwhelmed by everything that's been happening. He's not been the same since Humphrey died, or the cardinal, actually. But Lord Clifford and Somerset go challenge this. There is a battle, and Clifford is killed, and young Clifford, his son, swears revenge on the Yorks, the Plantagenets. Somerset is also killed. The king and queen are forced to retreat, and York has won the battle and tells Warwick about how this battle will be remembered and yada, yada, yada. How great he is, blah, 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 blah. So, that's Henry VI, Part 2. It was all written by Shakespeare, but it's clearly a underdeveloped work. Something that the voice is there, but it's not fully formed yet. That makes sense. It's got a lot of politics. It doesn't balance it terribly well. The John Cade stuff is not balanced terribly well with the high politics stuff. Some of the more macabre stuff, like the Suffolk's head, is sort of just like, where'd that come from? You'll never see anything like that again, actually. Never, ever, ever. There are a lot of things that are touched on that will become big things and big set pieces in plays, but they've all been shoved in here all together, which makes it a really busy play compared to the later plays. So, and Henry VI is just nothing like his father. I mean, is this really? He's not even like Richard. Because he's very like a Richard II, in terms of being a very young king and expecting to be there. But whereas Richard is self-important and somewhat narcissistic and somewhat funnily tragic at times, and does manage to be quite taken aback when things go wrong, Henry's a little too placid in the face of disaster. He's a little too unsure of himself to be a really strong central character. So it's sort of, the play is a bit like a donut. The hole in the middle is Henry. He's the hole in the middle of the donut. So anyway, we will be back next week with the third of these plays, Henry VI, Part 3. So until then, bye-bye. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.